2 years ago, I remember thinking, I don't even think I can do 3 days not drinking. After the first drink, I cannot drink safely. And basically the question that I ended up answering was, how much more are you willing to lose? Oh my God, I feel emotional even talking about it. All of my relationships pretty much improved because I was a more reliable person. I can coexist with my feelings now in a way that I just couldn't before. My life is just so much better since quitting. I haven't planned this video and I've got no idea what I'm gonna say, but I think it doesn't matter. What matters is that I sit down and talk about being sober, because it's something I'm really proud of and it's a huge part of my life. Sometimes I shy away from talking about sobriety because I don't want to be pigeonholed as the sober girl, the sober influencer, and for it to become something that can be seen as a monetizable part of what I do. If you line up my content, I really try and actually dodge talking about sobriety or making it like a pillar of what I speak about, because I am really proud of myself in this journey. But fundamentally, the thing that I needed when I was thinking about getting sober was to see people who had these rich, full, beautiful lives who were not entirely focused on their sobriety. Like, it didn't define them. It didn't make them who they were. The music they loved, the books they read, the things they did, their life experiences, that's what made them who they were. And they were sober. And the few creators that I found who did that well and communicated that well were more inspiring to me than any of the other like influencers or online creators who prioritized their sobriety in their content and made it kind of the whole package of what they were about online. That's not to say that those other sober influencers didn't help me massively. They really did. But I couldn't envision a life where sobriety became my entire life. And I got so much reassurance from seeing people talk about sobriety as almost an afterthought. In my life, sobriety is not an afterthought at all. It's a really big part of what I do, but it doesn't define me. So much has come from being sober in my life, but it isn't who I am. A quick bit of background, I got sober when I was 26 years old. Life had been very difficult because of my drinking for quite a while, but I had a rock bottom of sorts where it really became stark that nothing was going to change about the things that were making my life difficult unless I quit booze. And I had known that for a really long time. I tried to get sober first when I was 21. I made a video on here that a lot of people did end up seeing, and I've left it up, not because I feel that I want it up, but because I see how much it helps people. And I think that's really valuable. If that is what gets you through the door into exploring your relationship with alcohol, then I'm so happy. It felt like I was on a hamster wheel, basically, of I would do these periods of sobriety, I'd gain some semblance of control back over my drinking, but fundamentally I was grabbing with an iron fist, like I was holding on for dear life. I would watch everyone's drinks as we drank, like as they slowly went down, to work out when I could feasibly go back and get another, try and pace myself. Like I was constantly having to work really hard to pace myself. And I still have friends now, especially I think with 2 years of seeing me sober and be sensible and being, you know, me, who look back and go, you just weren't that bad. And it's not necessarily that everyone saw how bad it got. A lot of the badness was in private or in my own head. There's a lot that people didn't see, and there was a lot that I was struggling with for a long time, but it would ebb and flow and it would always come back around. And it was when I realized that it would always come back around that was when I realized we weren't on an upward trajectory. We weren't on a journey. We were just going round in circles. We were swimming in circles. And basically the question that I ended up answering was, how much more are you willing to lose? I had just generally like jeopardized a lot of things in my life. Like, oh my goodness, I'd embarrassed myself at so many work events. Guys, I was like always the drunkest at work events. But again, like I was fun. I went home when everyone else went home. So it kind of like, to some extent, I must have blended in. I'd never had an off switch with booze. Ever, ever, ever. The things that stopped me from going and going and going were social expectation and physical limitations. I was a blackout girl. I would black out so easily, so quickly. And I only realized in early sobriety that actually some people don't believe you about blackouts because they've never experienced one. They think it's kind of like a metaphor. You really do just like lose chunks of your night, if not the whole night. And that was me. I was just losing these chunks of time, and I was also having these like quite heavy consequences. A lot of people would describe it as like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. I'd get lost, I'd run away, I would get in random people's cars. Like there was just a load of stupid stuff that I would do. And by the end of the drinking, it got so bad that even when my nights were consequenceless, because I was blacking out, even after like a few glasses of wine, I started getting hazy and losing things, that the anxiety in the morning was unbearable. And I know for a lot of women, this is actually like an entryway into kind of analysing and reviewing their relationship with alcohol. I've just realised I've got a hairband. Can we pretend that that did not exist on my wrist for half the video? But yeah, for a lot of people, the anxiety is really where things start to turn in their relationship with alcohol and drugs. And so I'd wake up in the morning, I would cry, I would be so unbearably anxious. I would, you know, have all the classic symptoms like the heart palps, the sweating. It was so bad. I was dysfunctional after I'd even had a few glasses of wine. And I think the thing that really got me and I found really challenging was the idea that I was just lowering my inhibitions, that these were things I wanted all the time, or these were behaviors I wanted to exhibit all the time, but the alcohol was just like letting the truth come out. I didn't relate to that, and I didn't feel the way that I was behaving. It wasn't like I was repressing a load of feelings and then suddenly they were all coming out. It felt like random fire. And I think the unpredictability of my behavior is what became so scary to me. Because when I woke up in the morning, it wasn't like I could go, oh, that's the kind of thing Lucy would do, or like, oh, that's the kind of thing that happens to me when I'm drunk. Anything could happen to me when I was drunk. I would do anything. And I didn't understand it. And I also never felt like I was choosing to drink. And this is maybe something that's a bit different. Like a lot of people go in going, I'm going to get fucked up tonight. I didn't have that. I would always go into my night thinking, just have one or just have two. But after that first drink, it turns out I was just at the mercy of whatever would happen next. After the first drink, I cannot drink safely. That first drink is always a gateway. And I kind of knew it deep down in my heart, but I didn't really understand it. So yeah, it just took for me to realize that this wasn't changing to get sober. So after a particularly bad night, I realized I had to quit. I realized that this was gonna really spiral. There's a book I read at the time. I read a lot of like quit lit. I knew I needed to quit for ages. I mean, since I made that video when I was, 21, I knew that things weren't right, but I knew I was kind of just about keeping a handle on it a lot of the time. But I was still reading all of this quit lit, which is like quitting literature about going sober. And one book I read, I think is called Alan Carr's like Easy Way to Quit Drinking. And he described how it almost operates like a Venus flytrap. You get reeled in by like the sap in the Venus flytrap. It's so delicious, it's so nice. And only once you're halfway down the Venus flytrap's throat do you turn around and realize where you are. And at that point you're stuck. It's sticky, you can't get out. You know, I said I don't feel like me drinking the way that I did was ever a choice. I also don't really feel like getting sober was a choice. So I find it quite strange when people applaud it and are like, wow, well done you, because it never felt like a decision. I think I really had trouble in those first few months coming to terms with any idea of choice in this whole experience. I didn't choose to drink the way I did, and I didn't choose to get sober. Everything was happening, and I was just like having to exist through it and weather the storm. So November 2021 was the final straw for me. And I remember saying to my boyfriend, I have to quit drinking. And he went, but you're not an alcoholic. And I went, at this point, honestly, do you think it matters what I am? Do you think the terminology even matters at this point? All that matters is that this is ruining my life and that there is a way out. And luckily, I had a few friends who had quit drinking as well, and they provided the most amazing support at the beginning. Oh my God, I feel emotional even talking about it. Like I chatted with Melanie. I don't know if you follow Melanie Murphy on here, but she was just the most amazing support. I think this is a really weird month because I spent a lot of it reflecting and going kind of living in the past a bit, going back to that stuff. So it does feel a bit more present. Whereas like I don't really think about like my journey so much these days. But then I think about people like Mel, and like I've got a friend called Alan who is just so helpful, and like, yeah. Anyway, this is annoying. I can't keep filming while this is happening. Let's talk about sobriety and what that looked like, because I don't think I've really spoken about what the first 2 years have been like. So some people describe a pink cloud as they get sober, that once they remove the alcohol from their system, suddenly everything feels brighter, lighter. A cloud is lifted. I did not have that. And I can tell you for free that I was so annoyed at people who would say that they had. That whole first 6 months of me quitting drinking was me trying to fix what I'd broken, specifically fixing myself, obviously, but also just like putting the pieces back together, because like I spent so much of my life drinking that it had kind of taken over a lot of stuff. I also had to rehabilitate a few relationships in my life. It was this real period of grind of just get things done, one foot in front of the other kind of mentality, because I couldn't even imagine a world where I never drank again. Again, even though I'd officially like chosen to be sober, it just felt like so removed as an idea. I could not think about the future. I just had to exist. If you've also just quit and you're feeling the same, do not worry. Around month 4 or 5, I felt serotonin for the first time again. I remember walking along the street and just thinking, oh my God, I feel a bit of happiness, like a crumb of happiness. This is the best thing of my life. And I think I just had a lot of fear then as well. I had a lot of fear about how my relationships would change, what that would mean for me. Would I lose people? Would people not want to be my friend anymore? Like, there were people around me in my life who I considered really good friends telling me that I didn't need to quit drinking. And I constantly had to advocate for myself. And I found that incredibly draining, but also really good for me. It built my backbone back up, because I'd killed off my self-esteem by always telling myself that I wasn't going to drink, I was only going to have 2, and then I'd go and have a big night. Again and again, I just broke my trust in myself. And that completely knocks your confidence, that completely knocks your self-esteem. So when people were questioning my decision and I had to really advocate for myself in that early period, that's when I started seeing my self-esteem build back up. And I also found a few sober friends in that time, and that was honestly one of the most transformational parts of this whole journey. I didn't actually end up losing any of my friends or having my lifestyle change particularly significantly. So if you're in that boat as well, please don't worry. I realized what I didn't enjoy doing. So if you go out a lot at the moment and it turns out you don't actually enjoy going out, then you will probably stop going out if you quit drinking. But I really enjoy live music, and I still go and see live music all the time. I go to gigs all the time. I see my friends all the time. It tends to be more dinners than anything else. Although we do go out. Like, when I go out, I'm like out, but it does take a little while to adjust. So just bear with yourself while you're in that stepping stone process. All of my relationships pretty much improved because I was a more reliable person. And not only that, but I gained more friends. I got sober friends, and those sober friends that I made in that first year got me through. So if you have any opportunity to make sober mates, like, absolutely do it. And I can say now that I've come to the end of year 2 that my sober relationships have just blossomed this year. Whole new friendship groups that I never imagined possible. I have like online support networks. Like, I feel so emotionally supported in my sobriety through my friendships. And yeah, I'm just incredibly lucky. And one of my like absolute BFFs, Alice, is absolutely amazing. Like, I could not have done my first year without her. She was so helpful. We just muddled along in our early sobriety together, and that is just like that invaluable shared experience. Like, it's something so unique. And I think we're like life bonded now. And then I think the thing that became really evident in year 2 is that going sober doesn't magically fix your life. Like, life still happens, you know, bad things happen, difficult challenges arise. Like, it's just life. Life continues. But what you get out of quitting drinking is you get the tools to navigate those things. Obviously, if you don't need to quit drinking, then you don't necessarily need those tools. But for me personally, I was an avoider, like such a chronic avoider, such a procrastinator, such a perfectionist. I would just like dart around my problems and just kind of like push them to the next day. I wouldn't process my feelings on something. I'd avoid conflict because I was afraid of what might happen. Booze enabled me to really distance myself from any issues that arose and to artificially kind of numb myself from them. So it meant that when I actually did have to deal with them, the anxiety was at a 10, the stress was at a 10, the sadness was at an 11. I can coexist with my feelings now in a way that I just couldn't before. And I think it means that ultimately I deal with things quicker, and then I get over them quicker, and I have better perspective, and I'm just able to like do life a little bit better. My life is just so much better since quitting. I really am just indifferent to alcohol now in a way that I couldn't even have imagined 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I remember thinking, I don't even think I can do 3 days not drinking. I was drinking at least every 3 days, if not every 2 days or every day. But now I just feel indifferent to alcohol. Like, I'm not constantly looking for a substitute or like something to drink instead while I'm out. I mean, God forbid I drink a lemonade. I'm not like a lemonade girl, but I'll have a Diet Coke any day of the week. I love it. I used to desperately want to fill this hole that I think drinking kind of filled for me. And then when I removed it, I was still looking for stuff, but that hole has closed. I mean, ever so slightly it reopens sometimes and I just eat like 3 Kit Kat Junkies, but generally I'm okay. And I think when I removed the booze, I was able to see who I actually am. And when my mental health is a problem, like I'm having some troubles with my hormones at the moment, I'm trying to work out what that is. But that is something I've been struggling with for years. I just didn't realize because of the booze that it was cyclical and happening every 28 days. And only when I removed this lifestyle where I was drinking so often and just upsetting the rhythm of my body did I realize that, oh, this is 100% connected to my hormones. I think I've talked about it in a previous video, but basically I feel like really manic when I ovulate and I kind of exhibit symptoms of mania. But that's a story for another day. When I know more about that and it's a scar, not a wound, I will share more about that. But yeah, the main thing is that my life is so whole and rich and beautiful now, and I'm immensely grateful for that. And life now has a certain degree of regularity and predictability that I never had before. So yeah, I'm just really lucky. I'm really grateful, really glad. And I wanted to hop on here and share all of that. I'll stop being awkward now. I actually need to go to the gym. Oh my God, yeah, I gym now. Sorry? Who is she? What I hope for year 3 is that I'm able to work on some of the stuff that alcohol did not help with. For example, I'm realizing how bad my body dysmorphia is. My hormones aren't great. There's a lot of like things in that I would really like to work on. My relationship with technology, social media. And so I think the 3rd year of not drinking is kind of looking at some of those with a magnifying glass and thinking, okay, like, can I now address some of these longer standing issues that probably contributed to my drinking back in the day. Thank you so much for watching and letting me share some of my story. Hopefully you can get something out of this. And if you are on a journey with alcohol or drugs yourself, that this can bring you some motivation and solace, and I don't know, just I hope it helps. If you have any questions, like leave them below. I'll do my best to answer them while obviously trying to maintain my privacy. I hope you understand that I'm trying to be honest and thoughtful, but also not overshare. Like I've done that in the past when it comes to my drinking and sobriety, and I'm trying to find that middle ground. So I hope I found it. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.